Welcome to our webinar, Conversations with FCSN. We are really excited that you are all here with us. And I would like to introduce the Executive Director of FCSN, Pam Nourse.
Thanks so much, Mary. Hi, as Mary said, I'm Pam Nourse, the Executive Director of the Federation for Children with Special Needs. And I am joined today by Nancy Mader, who is our Director of Transition Projects, and Ruth Diaz, who is the Director of our Parent Center, as well as Mary Louise Pierce, who is our Development Coordinator. So over the next 45 minutes, I'm going to start by just giving a very brief overview of what the Federation has been doing to adapt to this current environment. And then I'll be turning it over to Nancy, who will be taking the bulk of the time, talking about what families who have children who are transitioning out of high school, what they're facing. After that, we'll be taking questions. Both Nancy and Ruth are here to help answer your questions. And I'd like to ask, if you do have a question, please use the Q&A box to type in your question. So again, thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. I know this is a very challenging time for everyone, juggling the educational, social, emotional, and economic impact of the pandemic. But the mission of the Federation, to inform, educate, and empower families to connect with the resources they need for their children to thrive, is extremely necessary during these uncertain times. And that's why we're kicking off our Step Up for Families program, because being there for families to help with questions about remote learning, remote IEPs, about telehealth, guidance on what happens when you or your child gets sick, how to balance all of the challenges with children at home, that's what's needed, and that's what we're here to provide. And I'd like to fill you in a little bit on what we've been doing over the last few months. Immediately after the governor announced school closings, we reached out to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, outlining our concerns for children with disabilities. We have since continued providing feedback to DESE on what is needed during this period from a parent's perspective. We've touched on a lot of issues, including communication, family involvement, prioritizing the most vulnerable students, addressing inequities in services across the state, lack of technology, translation, and more. One of the things that we've heard from parents is the need for information. So we partnered with the Special Education Advocacy Network to put on a series of 4 webinars, all of which reached our capacity for these webinars of 500 participants. We also, for the last 9 weeks, have conducted Facebook Live events every weekday on special education, health, transitions, community resources. These daily events usually reach 1,000 or more people each. In addition, we've transformed our trainings into webinars, and now we have over 100 webinars, live streams, trainings in multiple languages on our YouTube channel. I really encourage you to take a moment to check that out. Our call center is open and we answer questions about special education. We make referrals to early intervention. We help with healthcare and health insurance and whatever families need. The nature of these calls has really expanded over this period. Let me give you one example of a mother who called us because she couldn't leave her child with complex medical needs to do her grocery shopping. So we went for her, getting groceries, diapers, other needed items. And many times parents are calling us when they're absolutely at their wits' end, looking for help, resources, and sometimes just a listening ear. So tonight we're going to be focusing on transition issues. And I'd like to turn it over to Nancy. Nancy Mader, as I said, is our Director of Transition Projects. She oversees all of our transition initiatives, including our Planning a Life conference for parents and professionals. She provides technical assistance on transition issues. Nancy has a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling with a specialization in vocational evaluation. Nancy's also the parent of 2 boys, one of whom have special needs. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Nancy.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope there's not too much ruckus in the background. I tried to kick my family out and they're just now leaving. So I'm going to share my screen with you because I am better with PowerPoints. So I'm going to just share this really quickly. Here we go. So I'm the director of the Link Center. The Link Center is our federal grant. It's through the Rehabilitation Service Administration, and it oversees all of our transition projects. So thank you, Pam, for the introduction. I have a small bit about me. So as you can see, I am from Wyoming. I think that's probably the most interesting thing about me. It is my favorite place in the entire world. Up in the upper left-hand corner there is my most loyal worker and my best boy. He is by my side almost every day here in my home office, sometimes on my lap, but usually in that little bed there. And that's my oldest boy in the Wyoming hat there, and he has dyslexia, which I don't know what I would have done if I didn't work at the Federation. They helped me navigate the special ed system and figure out services that he needs and help calm me down when I just didn't even know what to do when he couldn't read, and he's such a bright boy. And then the middle guy right there is my youngest son, and that picture pretty much sums him up. I think he's probably got a sword in one hand, he's got his sunglasses on, he's in Wyoming with that big sky behind him at my parents' house, no shoes, out in the country, just living the best life you possibly can. And then my husband and I are in the Tetons there. So obviously I'm a girl with a passion for Wyoming, and then my favorite thing in the world is Wyoming football. So, which I'm not sure that will happen this year. That's all right. So the Link Center, what do we do? So we connect families and individuals with who are transition aged information support services. So to really just achieve their vision, to make sure that they reach their future goals. And it's a lot of work. I'm extremely passionate about it. I think it's so important. And in the future here, we're going to talk about how we do it. So who are we? The Link Center sounds like a sprawling center filled with people talking about transition work, but it's very few people doing a lot of work across the state. 2 of us, myself and my colleague Jennifer, are the primary people in the Link Center, and then we have our official and unofficial Link Center member, Leslie, who I partner with so frequently. You wouldn't know that we weren't in the same department. We're constantly working on things together. Leslie runs our Mass Pack project. So transition and CPACs kind of go hand in hand, and we're always trying to educate people. So what do we do at the Link Center? We do trainings all around the state. We have our Planning a Life conference, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. We have a project with the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. It's a family support project. This happened under the Workforce Innovation and Investment Act, and it is helping mass rehab counselors understand working with families and helping families understand the new system, the pre-transition services that Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission runs for young people age 14 to 21. We have our tips brochures, which you can see on the side there. Those are transition information for parents and students. And they are extremely helpful. They're taking information and making it family friendly. We have our Linked Over Lunch live stream series, which is trainings on timely topics in transition, trying more families. We take phone calls, emails, provide technical assistance, transition fairs across the state. We have our website, which is just jam-packed full of resources. And I sit on numerous advisory boards so we can keep our fingers and our understanding on the pulse of what's going on in the state with agencies, different nonprofits, just trying to keep ourselves as up to date as possible on what's going on in the world of transition. So why is it important? Background in rehabilitation counseling. So as a vocational rehabilitation counselor, I'm primarily worked on the nonprofits that primarily helped individuals with disabilities, significant disabilities, get jobs, get ready for employment, find employment, keep employment. And what we find is they were coming out of high school, these young people and these even adults were coming out of high school and they were not prepared for the world, not prepared for college, prepared for work. And as you can see here, the graduation rates are significantly lower for students with disabilities compared to their typical peers. I'm going to go on to my next slide, where it looks even worse for our individuals with disabilities. You know, their employment rate is significantly lower than their typical peers. So students were coming out of high school years ago, and even still now to some extent, completely ill-prepared for college and for work. And so this is why transition services are so important. They need to understand their disability. They need to have work-based learning experiences. They need to understand their accommodations, you know, all of these different things that we are working on in transition to help them more prepared for the adult world, connecting them to their adult service agency, making sure there's not gaps in services. So I really think about transition like retirement plan, making sure that there's a community built around these students before they leave high school, so that their last day of high school, all of their life doesn't stop. Hopefully, transition services work and there's really great planning around all these students so that when they leave high school, they don't miss a beat. They social activities. They go to college or they keep having learning experiences of some sort. They have their adult service agency if that's something that they need lined up, and they're ready for work if that's something that they want to do. So our Planning a Life conference. So how do we do all of this stuff? How do we train all these people? We have a Planning a Life conference. So it's Planning a life beyond high school, right? And so when I first got to the Federation, it was always a 2-day conference. And as I got into the groove of how we were doing this, 2 days for families and 2 days for professionals in a row is really challenging. It was challenging for me. So we have diversified it. We still do offer our 2-day series because that's the one with the most information. It is just a wealth of information. You leave with a wealth of resources. But for those people who that's not necessarily what they can do, we've developed a 1-day intensive conference. We really just find the meat, what you really need to know, and we give it to you that day. And part of these conferences, part of why they were diversified was because of evaluations, and we listened to the questions that our attendees were asking. And so from that, we developed the Planning a Life Preparing for College, because what families and people need to learn for students who are going to go on to college is different for what families and individuals who are working with students who are not going to go to college. It's very different. And so we try to make a conference, that benefited all different people. And so the Preparing for College one is, we have Quinsigamond Community College come in and talk about what disability services looks like from a college point of view, what they need to know about their accommodations and how to ask for them, the difference between high school and college. We talk about the law, we talk about all kinds of different things that individuals need to know as they go into college. And then our last one that we had just developed and we're not able to have was a Planning a Life for students with medical complexity. Because what they need and the resources that these families need is also so different from the other Planning a Life conferences. So we hope to have that either virtually or eventually in person or both soon, because I think it's really important information. I think families will really benefit from it. These are our tips brochures. These we partner with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Many of them are their technical advisories, and we've put them into family-friendly language. These are free online on our website, and they're translated into 5 different languages. So you can find them in Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Haitian Creole. They're so useful. I always encourage people to take them into schools, take them into an IEP meeting, give them to professionals, because they're so useful. And you can take them into school and say, this is DESE's language. This is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's language on how transition should be handled, on, you know, the services we should be getting, how we should be talking to each other. So I really encourage people to look at these and to pass them along. And so we started this Linked Over Lunch live stream series last spring. So within our Link Center grant, we were doing webinars. And it's so hard for families and professionals to tune into an hour-long webinar because you're usually working and you're eating or you're doing something else, and you can't necessarily look at screens and look at slides. So we started this Linked Over Lunch live stream series, and it's been wildly popular, really meeting the needs of families, because it's quick. It's less than 20 minutes usually. And we just do topics that seem really timely. So these are the topics that we've covered. We've reached at least 1,000 people with each live stream, and I think the most we've reached was 4,000 people. So, you know, we'd love to keep them up once we can start seeing people again, or, you know, technology gets easier for us to interview people in a quick way. But you don't even have to watch them, you can listen to them. So, you know, when you're doing dishes or driving in the car, pop one on that's interesting to you. They're saved on our Facebook page, and they're also on our YouTube page. So what are we doing now? So we had to completely readjust everything with the COVID-19 public health crisis. I remember the last day in the office, it was crazy thinking like, oh, we probably won't be here for like 3 weeks. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that like 9 weeks later, we still weren't in the office, and it, you know, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So I think that the Federation has done a really great job of adjusting and reaching our families. And so we do, like Pam said, a Facebook daily live stream series. The topics are here. So transition is on Tuesdays. We've covered, you know, disability disclosure, and yesterday I sat outside on my front porch, social distancing from Allie Ulrich from the Easter Seals, talking about College Navigator. I think what you get here, I think the best part of what you get here is real people giving you information that they think you need, like little tidbits of information that you can digest in 5 to 15 minutes that we feel important for you to have, because we feel it's important for us to have too. So you're getting a little bit of human contact virtually from people who think that this is important information that you can use. We've updated our YouTube channel, which was a lot of work, but it's a whole bunch better organized now, and you can get on there. There's free accessible workshops. There's a wealth of information on there, so I encourage you to get on. Leslie and I took our basic rights transition planning workshop, and we broke it into a 4-part series. That's free. It's on our YouTube page, and we tried to do it in 20 minutes, but it's just not possible for us. I think the first 2 are under 30 minutes, and then the second 2 are under 40. But I encourage you to get on there, listen to them, watch them. It talks about the law, vision, transition in the IEP, you know, and post-secondary options. We continue to respond to calls and emails and provide technical assistance. We're just constantly emailing families back, letting them know their best options for how to handle situations right now. We've had a lot of free webinar series, and we'll continue to provide those. And we've done 2 surveys, as Pam said. We did an initial needs survey and then a follow-up survey that provided us with great information about what families need right now and how we can help them. So what have I learned? Man, I've learned that this is hard, and it's going to continue to be hard, and that we need to support each other and try to stay as positive as we can. You know, I always knew that families on the Federation for guidance and advocacy, but when this happened, we were bombarded with families who needed our help. And I think we responded magnificently. I think that we've provided people with free information, and we've tried to help families as we possibly could. I learned that we're flexible and we can use technology. I think the Federation was so driven by personal contact and being there in person for so many years. I mean, we've driven to Pittsfield, we've do, the far end of the Cape, we've taken ferries to Martha's Vineyard because we wanted to be, and I think now we understand use technology and reach more people, and it might even be better for some families for us to use the technology that we've become accustomed to. I think that we've learned how many partners we have in this state and how well we work with people and how much we appreciate that, and how when we all team together, we can really help more families in better ways. I've always known how dedicated and resilient our staff is. I have never been more proud to work for an organization as I feel working for the Federation. But we will do anything to help a family, and I am so proud of that all of the time. We just, people are working in the middle of the night helping families, and I just think it's amazing. And then funny things that I've learned, Zoom's exhausting, so exhausting. When I think I should brush my hair, I certainly should, because it usually shows up that I haven't. Sometimes putting in an earring, maybe a little lipstick, or what we call a hard pant, a jean, can make you feel better and a little bit more like a person. Maybe when you go outside and walk your dog, you feel a little bit better. And I learned this one the hard way. People can tell when you're yelling at your kids, even when you're on mute. So that's what I've learned. I would like to thank you for joining me and for your support, for supporting the Federation always, and letting you know that your donations help to support our work with families. And I think it's really important, and I'm really thankful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That was phenomenal. And I really want to plug, if you're on Facebook, please, check out the Facebook Lives that we do. We do it every day at 2 o'clock. They're very short. We know that you all have a lot going on, so you can just, and if you miss, if it's 2:30 and you missed it, no problem. Everything is archived there, and they're also archived on our YouTube channel. So they're very, very accessible, and it really is just like little bits of information that are easy to digest, and it will really help you during this period of time. Now we're going to have a question and answer period. And I want to encourage you to ask questions. We have Nancy here who can answer questions about transition. We also have Ruth who can answer questions about DESE, and Pam can answer questions about, just the Federation, overall from an administrative standpoint. And I'm going to be looking at the question, and I'm going to be looking at the Q&A box, so feel free to go ahead and type things in there. And the first one I'm going to take is from Jenny. Jenny, this question was longer, and I don't know why I can't see it all now, but I'm going to try and remember it. But it says, I am both an SESP and a school psychologist. For students who are moving on after high school, we typically have to have a final cognitive evaluation. This got cut off, but what I think you were asking was that, are there waivers now for this year in light of what's happening? So I don't know if you want to take that, Nancy?
I'm going to leave that one to Ruth.
Okay, great.
Ruth, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Another thing we learn is unmuting yourself.
I did provide an answer, but basically to Ginny on the Q&A. What I said was that there's no formal waiver to the final evaluations, assessments, but DESE is leaving it up to parents and schools to reach agreement. And believe me, the schools are going to be inundated with evaluations. They will be so happy to have a parent come forward and say, we don't need an evaluation. So I wouldn't worry about that one.
Okay, great. And I want to say, Ingrid, I see you raising your hand if you have a question. or a comment, go ahead. And I'm a little bit new to this, so I don't know how to let you talk. But if you have a comment, please just put it in the chat, and I'm watching for it. So this is an anonymous question. This question is geared towards transitioning from early intervention to the special education program. I know that virtual transition meetings are occurring between school reps and families, but are there plans in place for having evaluations during this time to see if these young kids qualify for special ed programs at the preschool?
Do you
Go
want
ahead.
me to answer?
Yes, please.
I think this is an area that is still being worked on by DESE. They have not quite figured out what to do here. I think the prevailing thought is that to the extent possible, at least our perspective is that what they should be doing is taking the kids that they can clearly identify as eligible for special education, using whatever early intervention assessments are available and moving them in to special education, which is a virtual program. So I think the best thing that could happen is if the US Department of Education extends early intervention services, and that hasn't happened yet. So there's still some work that has to be done here, but because the early intervention programs are providing good services, and those kids can still benefit from it, and we just don't have things set up to move to the next stage yet. So
Thank you. This question is from Allison, and it says, my daughter has Down syndrome and will be 21 this summer. Have you heard anything about education transition services being extended past age 22 because of this missed time due to the pandemic?
Again, we don't have an answer to that yet. That's a tough one because the law says special education ends at 22. So that, I would assume that will not change because it requires a change in the law.
I also would comment there that hopefully she has services through an adult service agency like DDS, where she may find more fulfillment, going to whatever program, a job program, working, they can get services from DDS and Mass Rehab at the same time if, she wants to work, or, go to a community-based day program. So hopefully those services are being planned out now so that there is no break from, her day-to-day life when she does turn 22.
The one thing I want to add as well is that DESE is continuing to put out guidance on these issues and other issues. So so that we can expect that there will be more information coming out, and we will be, as we get that guidance, we will be making that available.
This question is from Valerie. It says, lots of partial IEPs for kids transitioning. How are services continued while waiting for additional evaluations? So Valerie, I assume you mean the waiting until there's like in-person evaluations that can happen. Okay.
Ruth, do you want to start that one?
They're doing the best that they can to continue the services. So they've sent out packets of information. They've partnered with Channel 2 for programming that's available for all the different ages. They've asked for a lot of communication to occur between the parent and the teacher and other providers to figure out how they can support parents. They're doing phone conferences. Sometimes they're doing video conferencing. A lot of things are happening, but it's about ABA. That's a difficult, if it requires one-on-one, I don't know that it's happening. I mean, I've heard of one situation in which a provider is going to the home and providing services in the driveway, but I don't know of a lot of ABA services happening.
Ingrid's raising her hand. She's a staff member. I figured out how to let her talk. So Ingrid, Ingrid, you're on. Ingrid?
You're muted, Ingrid. No, maybe she can't.
Okay. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I can't. Sorry. I'm pushing unmute for Ingrid and it's not. I don't know.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, great.
This is Cheryl, and I didn't have a question.
Oh, well.
Okay.
See, we're still new to this, even though we've been using Zoom for 9 weeks now.
Sorry about that. I'm sure Ingrid has something very perceptive to say, and I'm sorry that I can't get to it.
I think, you know,
Mary, I
I
want to point out there's Susan Weber asks the question about can you tell us more about planning a life? And I don't know exactly if she's asking about what the curriculum is or what, or if that's a, you know.
Yeah, I can definitely tell you more about planning a life. So, you know, the 2-day conference is, well, 2 really long days of a lot of information, but I think that it's really, we've made it as useful as possible to make the most of your time. So we cover the law, we cover transition assessment. We have a young adult panel. So we have students come in. One is generally transition age, so under the age of 22. And 2 young people, young adults who've entered the adult world who can talk about their experiences through transition. And it's probably my favorite part. They usually have such a wealth of information and insight. And I think a lot of times that's the parents' favorite part as well, because they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, because we all mess up. Like, I'm a parent of a little boy on a, you know, on an IEP, and I don't do it perfectly, and I work at the Federation. I always leave those IEP meetings thinking, I hope I did my best. I don't know, we'll see. You know, so everyone's feeling that way. And they can see these young people who, you know, their parents felt that way as well. And they're happy, and they're successful in the lives that they want. And they appreciate their school. You know, they can always name one person who was their champion at school. They can always, you know, think back about something that they would keep the same and something that they would do differently. And they're so powerful, and I just love having them there. We have a special educator come and talk about how transition should be woven in and out of that IEP, how you should pick it up, and it should be the student's vision, and you should know something about that student when you read the IEP. You should know what they want to do after high school and how the school's helping them get there. We talk about healthcare transition. You know, that's something that's not talked about enough. I mean, I didn't even think about it. You know, I still don't think about it. I let human resources pick my primary care physician, you know, but for young people who have mental health issues or medical issues, talking about transitioning them from pediatric care to adult care is something that needs to be talked about and thought about and planned out for a long time. So that's something else that we talk about.
Okay, great. So this is from an anonymous attendee. It's how is transitioning to adult services actually moving forward during this time?
That's a good question. I would assume it's all virtual. I haven't heard anything about it, but you know that I know that DDS, I know Mass Rehab, I know the Mass Commission for the Blind are all handling cases now virtually until they can see people face to face. Obviously, day programming is going to be virtual, and some of these organizations weren't equipped for this right away. So some of them are still working out the kinks and working out how to be a virtual day habilitation center, and you know, those things. But for the most part, everything's happening virtually now until there's safety in the world and we can start meeting face to face and being in groups again.
Okay, great. So this is from Nancy Farnsworth. And it's what about, and I think it's Macy program. What about the Macy program for next year? If universities go to online, the Macy program includes not just auditing academic class, but internship, etc. And all aspects need to be delivered, but can't be with closed campuses.
So I was actually just on the advisory board meeting for the Macy program and listening to Salem State report about what they're doing, and they're doing it all virtually. So they're teaching, young people how to navigate online job applications virtually. They're doing interviews virtually, Zoom etiquette virtually, like all of these things that will be changing in our world. Like this isn't going away anytime soon. We're going to be Zooming in and out for the next couple of, at least the next year. So, and then this is probably going to change our workforce as well. Businesses have discovered that they can be just as productive with their staff working from home and not paying rent somewhere. So they're teaching them these things virtually. And from what it sounded like, they were very successful and very happy, and they have had really great attendance. So, things will change, but I think changing in a good way, in a way that can maybe even get more people involved for right now, but they are still reaching people, and they're chugging forward. They're still moving forward.
So I want to say we can take a few more questions. This is from Ingrid, who was raising her hand. But what about juniors preparing for college applications? MCAS has been canceled, but what about other required college entrance exams?
I don't know I don't think SAT and ACT have determined exactly what they're going to be doing, and colleges are probably going to have to change that. If you can't sit for it, or they can't figure out how to do these online where they feel comfortable with the results. I know my nephew in upstate New York still has an SAT testing day. He's a junior, he still has it, still scheduled. They're still saying that they can do it. So if they can do it safely, socially distanced, I don't know, one kid in one room throughout an entire high school, I don't know what they're gonna do, but he's still scheduled. So he's in, a different, more rural place in New York, but so they're just going to have to, things are going to have to change. I know some colleges had not really counted SATs or not required them, I'm from the West where you do the ACT. So, they're going to have to change, and there's going to have to be some different entrance and eligibility standards going forward.
Okay, great. This goes back to Allison's question in transitioning to services once you're past 22. And the question is, aren't there services you can still get post 22 if you're still found eligible for an IEP like with the Macy program?
I think Macy ends at 22.
But are there services you can still get post 22?
No.
Through the school district?
No,
No.
not for the school. I think we'd have to talk about other types of services that are available, because nothing's available after 22
But you can,
from an IEP.
so you can have two different adult service agencies supporting you. So if you are someone who has been found eligible for services through the Department of Developmental Services, and you are an individual who would like to become employed, you can also get services through the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. They will help you get the job and support you briefly in it, and then DDS would take over if you needed long-term supports. Same with the Department of Mental Health and Mass Rehab. They can also work together. DDS and DMH can also work together for individuals who have autism with no intellectual disability, but a significant mental health illness. So, you can get services that way. There's also the independent living centers, which are free in this state, and they're funded under MRC, but you can get services from them if you are an individual who identifies with a disability. So there's all kinds of free services through the independent living centers, which I believe there are 10 or 11 across the state.
Okay, thank you. So this is going to be the last question. I want anyone on this call to know that if we did not get to your question, or there was a question you think of later, please go to our website, fcsn.org, and there is a ton of information there. If you do not find an answer to your question, there is also a link that will connect you to the Parent Training Institute, the PTI Center, and that's what Ruth heads up, and we can connect you to somebody who can help you with technical assistance. So please don't worry if we don't get to your question. Please just contact us and we can help you. So the last question is, are there delays of adult services kicking in because programming is virtual?
I would guess yes. I don't know that for sure, but my guess would be yes, everything's going to be a little bit delayed. It took the state services a while to go virtual because that's just not how they were equipped. You know, I talked to David Darkangelo, the commissioner for the Mass Commission for the Blind, a couple of weeks ago on the phone, and they were a little bit better equipped because they have individuals who work from home and they understand technology because of their visual impairments. So they were a little bit more equipped to work from home, but you know, they're serving people. They are serving people. There may be some delay, but they are still serving people. So if there's delays and you don't know why, keep at them is my advice to you. Keep contacting them. Squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of situation to make sure that, you know, your young person gets services. But, you know, there always is a wait list, you know, for a lot of the day hub centers or the community-based day services. So those kinds of things generally have a wait list, but hopefully you've been, you know, planning ahead and you were off that wait list and going into services, you know, shortly after leaving high school. But keep after them if there's a delay. That would be my best advice to you.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for joining us. And just in closing, I want to say this has been a time for unprecedented collaboration for us with state agencies, our schools, pediatricians, other organizations, with families, and with our supporters. As we've been talking about, the Federation worked hard to pivot as quickly as possible to meet the needs of our remote work and school environment. In addition to the things that we've been talking about, adding our online trainings, live streams, webinars, we've had to increase our technology to meet our technology needs with additional laptops. We've had to upgrade our server. Our communication needs have increased. We've added time to our call center staff, and even small things like just doing a disinfectant cleaning of our office to prepare for returning in the future I've just found out will cost an additional $2,500. So what we have realized, to meet all of our needs between now and the end of the year, we need to raise an additional $150,000. And right now, just about right this time, we would usually be having our annual gala, which is our largest fundraising event of the year. It's been postponed to the fall. We still don't know if we'll be able to hold the gala, whether we'll be having a virtual gala, but we do know that we need your support. And if you're able to help us out with a donation, please go to our website, fcsn.org. It will enable us to continue helping families with what they need during our public health emergency. And I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight and for being part of the Federation family. We are in this together. And as Mary said, if you have any questions, please reach out. Our call centers are open. You can reach us by phone, email, or through our website, fcsn.org. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.